It's quite fascinating how confused we are in our normal state of egoic consciousness, and it's quite interesting how afraid we are. Even when you think you are not afraid, and you are this tough guy, you're kidding yourself. Every bit of the attitude that you put up is rooted in a deep fear of being exposed, of failing, of surrendering completely. You learned and embody this so thoroughly that you are all tensed up all of the time. And because this became so normal on a mere physiological level, you actually think this muscular tension is you. It's quite incredible how ridiculous we are and how well we play it. But let's forget this point for a few more minutes and start with the story. How did it all begin today? Well, it was quite a normal day here in Berlin, Germany. Azrael got up in the morning, ate some breakfast, took a shower, shaved his Zen master looking beard and did his daily holosync meditation. What a great one it was. What I guess most of you who haven't done F5MEO don't realise is that you'll start having flavours of the experience throughout your daily life, and especially in meditation. I recreated most of my last experience, the one in which I talk about our holographic nature. I meditated and saw my whole being flickering in this empty and endless space. I felt how when I move my attention, I create that centralised space for that brief moment until it goes anywhere else. Quite fascinating. As always on the weekends, I took a walk after my meditation, bathed in the spaciousness I was still wearing and thought about the day. I had to prepare for a talk I will be giving next week, so I did this most of the day. When I finished my work, I did my daily visualization. I visualize daily what I did this day in a positive way, and then I go through the next day and think about what I will do then in a positive way. I tend to be pretty analytical and negative, so my visualization keeps that in place and opens me up a lot. When I was done doing that, I laid on my bed and was just scared. I had thought the whole day that I wanted to do MEO after my work, and now was the time, but I was paralysed. Can I even physically stand the 30 milligrams? Maybe I'm not prepared enough. Can I really surrender? I don't feel quite as confident today like I would want to feel before such an experience. You know the drill. My mind would be going bonkers, but this is normal. I asked several times inside whether I wanted to do this, and my intuition was all for it, like always. But my mind was very nervous and scared. It didn't want to die, and I respect that. Although, I've got to say that the nervousness before the experience was harder than the actual surrendering in the experience, but we'll come to that in a few more moments. So I basically rewatched Leo's video on 5MEO DMT, watched one in which Joe Rogan, the comedian, talks about it, and I argued with myself all of the time whether I should be really doing it today. My mind came up with all kind of excuses to put it off for another week, but eventually I went inside again and my intuition really wanted me to do it now. So I did. I sat down in front of my desk, played my common tripping music, prepared my couch with fresh water, a hanky and a plastic bag for the case I had to throw up. Then I weighed 2 grams of cola nut powder on my fancy new scale, downed it with a little bit of water, and weighed 30 milligrams of 5MEO DMT. I waited a few more minutes until I felt the cola nut coming up, and then I basically got on my knees and visualised that I'll have the most epic experience of my life, and then I prayed that I can totally surrender into it. To whom did I pray? The fuck I don't know. Probably to myself, that I just give up the show and won't kill myself by resisting the experience. I think it really did help. So yeah, I made 2 equal lines out of the gold and sniffed into my nostrils. Man, just seeing 30 milligrams of this and knowing what kind of experience you had with 15 to 20 milligrams is very special. The whole act is a surrender. There's nothing easy about this, even though the most epic things follow. It's like you have a gun in front of you, and you know that when you'll shoot yourself in the head, you'll be in heaven. But you've got to do the shooting first. It's like that. So, I sniff it and go to my couch, tilting the head upside down and massaging it into my nostrils. I waited 5 minutes until reality got really wacky. Then I sat up normal, opened myself up, and tried to focus on love. I thought about a girl I loved once very much. I thought about her face when she laughed and how it completely melted me back then. Meanwhile, my pulse was going through the rooftop, and I had some difficulty thinking about her because my thoughts began to vanish. My head would be pumped with more and more clearness, which felt pretty good, and I was very comfortable in my body. What happened then for the next 15 to 30 minutes, I cannot put into words. I also will not scream with upper letters, "Oh my god," or "I am it," or something like that, because I didn't feel any of this in these moments. I didn't say a word. I had a few thoughts, but they were kind of arbitrary. I was completely in shock, completely speechless, but not in a kind of hectic shock. I was very well relaxed and relieved while I was in this state. It didn't even occur to me that I'm in shock or speechless until 30 minutes later, when I slowly came back and began to understand what just happened. Every picture I had about it prior to the experience was wrong. You can just not fathom with egoic consciousness what it is that underlies everything. I had no pretty visuals or something like that. I saw very clearly, and when I closed my eyes for a moment, I guess I saw some patterns, but I didn't pay much attention. I just was it. Everything and nothing. But it wasn't special in any kind of way. It began to be special when I came back and my individual tried to make sense out of it. But in the moment itself, it was completely obvious. It was completely eternal. And when I felt my body here and there, I just would feel so relieved and speechless. At some point I held my glass of water in my hands and I stared at it for probably 5 minutes without closing my eyes. The whole reality, every sense that I had seemed like a shell you could cut. It was also extremely still, completely eternal. I had no idea what this word really means. In the peak of the experience, it wasn't even explosive or something. When I got from normal egoic consciousness to the state I'm describing, the very transition can be quite explosive, although the cola nut did a great job in making that a very smooth one. But the experience itself is completely still. It isn't even an experience or state. If you have to think about it like you peel endless patterns of your normal reality away until there is this one core thing left, and you are this. God. Complete infinity. It's completely indescribable. Well, I peaked for about 20 minutes, and then slowly I began to understand what just happened. And then, as I said, I just was speechless for a good half hour. I just sat there. I had not much thoughts about it. Few maybe, but I was just shocked and speechless. Then at some point when I came down, I began to cook and make myself a salad. I did this for a few moments and then just had to sit down again and just cried like a little boy for a good 5 minutes straight. I just couldn't believe what I had done to myself for my entire life and what kind of nasty game I played with myself. I just saw it before my eyes and couldn't believe it. In the last few hours I had some thoughts coming up that resulted from the experience and seemed pretty authentic to me. You will never die. This is, I guess, the one thing I learned. You will never die. Don't be afraid of death. And I know this is easier said than done, but just think back. You as an individual were birthed into this life by magic. This whole existence is magic and there is nothing else but pure love. There never was a moment in your eternal existence in which you really had to fear anything. What shall there be? When you open your eyes, you create a whole visual field of reality. You are all of that. When you hear with your eyes, you create a whole auditory space with your sense of 3D hearing. When you think thoughts, you create endless parallel realities in your head that have their own reality. When you go to sleep at night, you can trust yourself to wake up in the morning. When you go, You can trust your legs to carry you around. When you go about your day, everything you do comes naturally to you. There is not a thing that is not supportive and loving to you. You just like to spin stories that this isn't the case, and you love to identify with it. If you really want to see this right now, just stop believing your own bullshit. When you drop all thought and belief, you are eternity. You are it. Before you lived, you were formless and rested in peace. When you were born, you decided to play a game called life, to experience this material reality. When you die, you let this reality dissolve again, and will probably rest for some eternal time, and then play some new games. Don't be afraid, it's all good. All of your problems have no value at all. Your negative emotions? Yeah, so what? There was no time in your life when you couldn't stand those. It's the nature of those negative emotions to be negative, and it's your nature as God to provide the space for them to occur. It's the nature of the positive to feel good and create a negative that will come at another time again. If you're attached to this, then that's okay. Just say to yourself that you're not believing your own bullshit, and keep up your quest. Time will show this to you. If I had to put all of this in simple words, I would just say that I'm speechless and relieved. Relieved from the nasty game I played with myself. And even though I know that it'll slowly come back and grab me again, I know that in the next few months I will go even much deeper with these experiences, that it'll just crack like a shell and will naturally fall off. Nothing else makes sense. Be good to yourself and be well. Cheers, Azrael.